Welcome to We're the Harrises, the best sports talk that you're going to get. We got Chris Harris Jr., Super Bowl 50 champion. We got current Browns player Shelby Harris, legend in and of himself. And you got myself, Ryan Harris, champion Super Bowl 50 and 10-year vet, alongside my brother Chris Harris Jr. Boys, let's kick things off. We saw a monster game between the Bills and the Lions. Josh Allen just might be the MVP. What think you?
Man, I just think that we try to hand the MVP to a quarterback every chance that we get. Yeah, we still got to show the running backs the love that they deserve. Saquon is still having a monster season. Even granted, he was held in check last game, but obviously Josh Allen's doing his thing in Buffalo. They just beat the number one team in the NFC and the Lions. They almost let it go, almost lost it at the end. Obviously had a big lead and they lost the lead late. But what Josh Allen is doing is special. Don't get me wrong, because before the season, the whole thing about the Bills was that they didn't have any extra talent. It was just Josh Allen. They got rid of Stephon Diggs. What are they going to do at receiver? All that talk about the Bills, and Josh Allen has answered every question possible. But I definitely think he's an MVP candidate. I don't think it's solidified yet. I don't think it's a lock that Josh Allen is MVP. I just think if Saquon goes and breaks his rushing record, there is no reason why he should not be MVP, and that's just my take on it.
Right, and when you look at Josh Allen, like I said last week, he's cut his turnovers. He's making plays. I think he has 11 touchdowns rushing to go with 25 yards touchdown or 25 yards passing, and he's still not touching Lamar Jackson. Right, Lamar Jackson's leading them in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Right, his rushing touchdowns are lower just because you add in a Derrick Henry, but you don't expect a guy like Lamar Jackson's numbers just to go up like that. When you added Derrick Henry, you would think he would throw less yards, throw less touchdowns. But Derrick Henry's opening it up. They played together well. I don't think that Saquon Barkley should be out the picture either, like you're saying. He's been balling all year. But last week, when you had those games at the end of the year and it's an average game, right? And your team takes he's not really showing out. And that's what Barkley had last week versus Steelers. I knew it was going to be a tough game. It's going to be hard for him to have over 100 yards and to keep that MVP momentum. So right now, I'm going to have to go with Shelby, Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson. And it's hard to say that because Lamar Jackson has better stats, right? But I'm going to go with that order right now.
Well, I'm with you guys. I like Josh Allen as the MVP, and here's why. It's so important to be playing your best football in December. He's got 10 touchdowns the last 2 games in December. That's not only does he have less talent like you talked about, Shelby, but he has found what I think it's just like right under the red line. Right? Like you can't red line for 17, 20 games, right? But you can sit at that 98%, and that's where he's at, man. Just authoritative with the football, running when he can. That's another thing people don't realize. When he runs, he is devastating, a huge dude. Yeah. So I just think going on the road, beating the brakes off the Lions. Yeah, there was a little late comeback, but let's be clear. They beat the brakes off of them on the road. Yeah. Then you add the Chiefs win. He's got quite the notches on his belt to make a claim for the MVP. It's tough not to give it to Lamar, but Lamar's also already won the MVP, right? So yeah. I think it's opportunity for Josh Allen, but I know from the way he's playing, watching him play, he's thinking about one thing, a Super Bowl championship, and what an accomplishment that would be. He'd give up the MVP to win the title, and that's exactly the kind of person who should win the MVP.
Speaking of Super Bowls, obviously the Lions have been a contender this whole season. We've been talking about the Lions as the team to beat, but now the injury bug has hit them crazy this whole season. Damn near the whole starting D-line is on IR. With Lynn McNeil going down, and then everyone talking about Aiden Hutchinson coming back, being ready for Super Bowl, they got to make it there. Do you still take this Lions team as serious with all these injuries that they have compared to before? They looked great on paper before, but now they're one of the most banged up teams in the league.
You have to take them serious just because of the level of Jared Goff is playing. He's been playing lights out all season. Gibbs and Montgomery's been great. St. Brown, they got weapons all over. Tim Patrick, getting involved. So they're going to put up points, right? Now it's on their defense, right? I think the Lions, they might be so injured in the back end. They might need to be calling me right now. I might need to be getting in shape, getting ready, because they don't have anybody back there, right? All their guys are hurt. Just seeing Carlton Davis going IR. So you got to have some vets in the playoffs, especially in that back end. So I'm with Shelby, man. I think that injury bug really is going to jump on their back, or it already has, and it's going to really show as they get to these big games, right? These games versus the Bills, these type versus the Packers, Vikings, those big games where you need all your guys, right? And usually, a lot of times, the team that wins the Super Bowl is the team that's the most healthiest team.
Yeah,
that's usually how it goes.
Man, but don't forget Montgomery's hurt. Montgomery now is out for the season.
Yeah.
So does that change? That changes their offense completely because they rely on, they gave themselves that nickname Sonic and Knuckles. You know what I mean? And that's the truth. They really rely off of each other to be that great 1-2 punch. Now that offense is, I think Montgomery's the one that goes and does the dirty work for them. So that offense is now completely changed. And so this is a whole different land. But if the OC is as good as they say he is, he'll be able to figure some stuff out and really solidify himself for a head coaching job next year.
Well, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs can get it done now. I mean, and Jahmyr Gibbs has been a number one back when he was in I think it was Georgia, right? He was at Georgia. So, I mean,
Alabama. Was he at Alabama? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs has the experience of being a number one back, being in Alabama, and he's explosive. But I tell you what, at the end of the day, you got to think about who else is in the NFC. I mean, Packers are playing well, and that was a close game that they had to go for it on fourth down and try not to give Jordan Love the ball back when they faced the Packers. Vikings might be the best team in that division. So, to Shelby's point, they got to get there. You can't talk about Aiden Hudson come back for the Super Bowl. Great storyline for the writers in Detroit. Not relevant, right? Because you need to win. You need to win 6 games out of the next 7 if you want to be successful in the playoffs. So injuries are a part of it. That's why, when we won the Super Bowl, one of the things that I know, Chris, you love too, Gary Kubiak gave us 15 minutes less each and every quarter of the season. So by the end of the year, you were doing less at the office in terms of like scheduled work, but that gave so much time for rehabilitation, right? Going in the cold tub, hot tub. So one of the things that you see with perennial playoff teams, they give these players bodies breaks in different ways. And it just looks like the Lions aren't doing any yoga. They're not taking care of the bodies, because that's when you start seeing these injuries mount. They're either lifting too hard and not stretching enough, or they're not getting enough time to take care of their bodies. And this is just another thing that Dan Campbell is learning as he continues to progress as a head coach.
He has that old school football mentality, all those guys, So they're like, hey, we went hard like this when we played, so y'all can do it, right? We see how they practice in training camp, the Lions. So I'm pretty sure they probably go real hard over there. But that's something, like you said, he's going to have to learn how to adjust and be a coach to be able to micromanage your players' injuries and things like that. But we're talking about the playoffs, right? The Broncos are sitting real tied up right now with the Ravens and the Steelers, right? So it's gonna be and the Chargers. I'm sorry, the Chargers. It's gonna go down to the wire. Broncos only need really one win to make the playoffs. Do you think they have a great chance to make it this year?
I believe they do. And look, the key too is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not going to be playing their starters in the final game. That's a win. The big one is going to be this Thursday against the Chargers. If the Broncos can beat the Chargers on a short week, not only do they propel themselves into the playoffs, but they knock a team out. And that's exactly where you want to be in December with that opportunity. And if they can beat the Chargers, they're in. And then the question becomes, where are they going? Can they win again? And, Bo Nix has had 4 interceptions the last 2 games. I think 5 interceptions the last 2 games. 3 in the last game, and one of them was on 3rd and 1, boys, and they threw a deep pass. Come on now, run the ball. So there's a little bit more that has to get fixed there. There's still penalty issues, but you don't have time not to score in the first half like the Broncos did in this past game against the Colts. If you want to go deep in the playoffs, you have to score, and their red zone offense has to start scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I think, the Broncos are in a good position, but their next 3 opponents, they're not slouches. You got the Chargers, you got the Bengals, and you got the Chiefs. That's 3 games. Or even if the Chiefs sit their starters, the Chiefs, they're still coached very well. And, so they got to go out there and really prepare and execute to the fullest to make sure they do win at least one of these 3 games. And I do believe the Broncos will win one of those games. I believe they will make the playoffs. But like you said before, and like I've said before, Bo Nix has to find a way to be more efficient because that's not playoff football. They need a way to get that run game going and to really protect themselves. They won that game against the Colts with their offense really, really struggling. The Broncos defense really showed out again. Another great performance by the Broncos defense to really bring that, bring that team alive. The Andrew C. Richardson experiment in Indy is all up and down, all over the place. And so the Broncos defense definitely took advantage of it. But it's, it's just, you're still just waiting for that full team win where every side of the ball is over there fully firing at all cylinders and making plays. And the Broncos have to figure it out soon. Like, they're winning these games. And that's all that matters in the NFL is winning these games. But for them to go to that next level, they all have to play complementary football in order to win, especially when it's time for the playoffs. But the Broncos are an exciting team right now. They're winning, and there's not necessarily the prettiest wins, but all that matters at the end of the day is going 1-0, and that's what the Broncos have been doing. So it's exciting to see, just where the Broncos are now, considering that nobody expected them to be here at the beginning of the season with a new quarterback. There was questions all over the board, but now, the Broncos are a team that, you might not want to play if, coming to that playoff time. So they're hopefully they start hitting their stride soon. But Broncos, I expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to at least put up some battles in the playoffs.
Nobody wants to see the Broncos defense, especially with the way Nick Bonito is playing right now. This kid is second in the league in sacks. He scored back-to-back touchdowns. Fumble. Did they give him a pick six or a fumble?
2 pick six. And the first one was unbelievable. He covered 2 people.
Yeah, he covered 3 people. Really, he covered 3 people and got a pick. And then last week, just having that awareness, we needed that play with the offense struggling. The defense has been carrying them, and Mims showed up, right? Big return, total all-purpose. He had probably like 90 yards. So those are hitting yardages that we needed from him. And the Broncos have a great chance, but it's like Shelby said, you got to be able to run the football in playoff time. That's one thing I'm nervous about. Javonte he's been non-existent, right? McLaughlin's finding little creases, but they're not very consistent. So the Broncos have to develop a run game. It can't be all on Bo Nix, or we'll be one and done, right? We got to get consistency in the run game. Now let's talk about Travis Hunter, right? We seen him. He won almost every award. AP Player of the Year, all Americans, the Heisman, right? But him, he's having little issues right now. What we say on the worldwide net, right?
Yes.
With his girlfriend, right? Fiancée. How do y'all feel about the situation? What advice could y'all give to players kind of in his situation right now coming into the league?
Man, I just think it's getting a little overblown, I would say, just because, we don't know what their relationship is. I think we as people, we love to be nosy. We love to insert ourselves in the other situations, and we don't know what they got going on. We don't know how their roles are in their relationship and how they do things. I think, he's obviously smart enough to get himself into this position and to, carry himself the way he does. And he's surrounded himself with the right people. And I don't think that's going to stop short of the spouse he chooses. And I just think, especially when it comes to spouses, I think our biggest thing that, being in the media and being on the outside that people fail to realize is to mind your own damn business. I've always said that before. It's like what they have in a relationship is none of our business. And I just think that they're going to figure it out. You're going to live, you're going to learn. It's either going to work out or it's not. If it doesn't work out, you're going to learn that lesson and you're going to make sure you don't do it again. And so I don't think of it as that big of a deal. I just think it's something where we're looking for any reason to cast doubt on Travis Hunter or his decision making, who he's surrounded himself with, because there's a no story everywhere else about Travis Hunter. Everywhere else you hear he's a great kid. He loves football. Loves preparing for the game of football. He's not out in the club doing all that other stuff. So now we just have to find something to get on this kid about when there's nothing there. And I just think this is that type of story.
Well, 3 things for me. Number one, this is a huge issue. I mean, who players choose as their partner, who anybody chooses as their partner, is a major issue in your success. And all of us have stories about teammates, whether it's crying or having an argument or something, whether it's training camp. Like, who you choose as your partner is a big deal. And specifically in the NFL, I mean, behind injury, nothing else gets players out of the NFL more than picking the wrong significant other. And so that's the first issue. Like, that's a major issue that it doesn't really get talked about. And to Shelby's point, mind your own business. But let's be clear, it's a reason why a lot of kids are distracted when they play football. The other thing happening here, at the end of your college career and that final, it doesn't matter whether you're playing football or sports or anything. There's a lot of like, oh, we want to be together. Are we being together for the future? Are we getting married? You got to shut all that down. You need to find somebody that has their own passion in life. But lastly, this is an issue for me because this is the highlight of his college career for Travis Hunter. He won the Heisman. He's taking pictures with fans, and she's barking at him. Well, what am I going to do? Let me be very clear. For her in the future, and for anybody in the future who's going to maybe be with Travis Hunter, they're going to be a sideshow. It's going to be on the side. There's going to be a lot of limelight on Travis Hunter, and there's going to be a lot of demands on his time. And if you're with somebody that wants attention, it's going to be extremely difficult to be successful because you're not going to be able to reach him when he's in training camp. You're not going to be able to have these kind of attention conversations with a star player throughout the season. So my big thing is the situation of a successful moment and a partner who wants attention. That's a problem because if you're a partner that wants attention and your partner's getting the attention, that's only going to cause bigger problems, and it's going to come out sideways. It's not going to, Travis Hunter or anybody in that situation, they're not going to be prepared for what's coming in when they walk in the door because their partner's upset about attention. So that's a major issue. I hope they've talked it out, and I hope more than anything that she and many other spouses who are in the NFL understand that, man, if you want attention, you may have picked the wrong partner if they're going into the NFL or any kind of high profile kind of opportunity.
But there's a learning period. We gotta with all of our spouses, there's a learning period where you have to realize that everyone. My wife always says it the best. She's like, "Oh, sure, you're great too." That's how it always is. Like, hey, we're here for you. We're here for your husband, but I'm sure you're cool too. But we'll get to you later. And it's a learning process. It's a whole period of where you realize, where your role is to help boost your husband. And it's different when you're a professional athlete. I think it takes practice for women to understand the life and the show that it is of being a professional athlete.
Well, men too. Men. There's a lot of men that aren't good with letting their spouse, their wife, get the attention, or their wife go get the job that they want. So this is a bigger issue that we all can recognize in a relationship. But if you're in a high-profile job, going after your dream, and your partner's kind of holding some attention issues back, that's problematic. I don't care what your job is.
I just believe Travis is very smart. Just take your time, slow down. That's what I would give him advice to. Take your time, slow down. Enjoy this time, right? It's probably one of the funnest times of his life.
Yeah.
Right? Because once you get into the league, that's a whole nother level of pressure, right? That's a job. Even though y'all getting NIL and things like that in college, it turns up another level, another notch in the league. And like Shelby said, a lot of these women aren't prepared to be the sideshow like that, right? They're not prepared to be kind of on that back burner, right? They think more than likely majority of women think they're the prize on that, right? So it's just a learning process that a lot of these women have to go through, and hopefully he's able to do that because it's hard to play football without that clear mind.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
I'm not going to play my best. Me and wife have friction and, things are going on. So hopefully he can be able to get that handled. He can go out and come into the league with a free mind and with peace and be able to do his thing.
Well, last thing before we get out of here, we got to make sure we talk about this before we get out of here. De'Vondre Campbell, Leaving his teammates high and dry, just dipping on the sideline. Man, how does that make y'all feel? And could you ever welcome a teammate back like that just kind of left you out there defending for yourself in a time of need?
I couldn't do it. I mean, there's just no excuse to me. And I think everybody with every job, if somebody just got up and left in the middle of a crunch time, which to your point, Shelby, they were in a win or go home game against the Rams. Mm-hmm. And to leave in the game, like, I don't even know how you would say that to the equipment. Like, I don't know who he talks to, or if he just starts walking. I'm like, I mean, that is such an unforeseeable occurrence. And you knew he was getting cut right away. Afterwards, Shanahan, after the game, was like, yeah, we're not going to talk. We don't have to talk about him anymore. That means he's cut. And right. For the player, I wish he had handled it differently, because I don't think he's going to get another opportunity to play again. How could you trust him as a teammate, as a coach? Now, I want to make space if there was something really big going on in his life. I think we would have heard that by now. But, man, I just wish, as a former player, I wish he would have handled that better, because the long-lasting effects are going to be devastating.
Yeah, I wish I knew kind of what they told him or what was his role going to be, but I think he understood that he was going to be a backup, right? You would be starting until Greenlaw get back. Like, everybody knows Fred Warner and Greenlaw are the backers at the 49ers.
Yes.
Right? So he shouldn't have been in his feelings like that, I don't think, as a player. But, I've never had a teammate do that. Mm-mm. So I don't know how I would respond to that, because I'm out here playing through injuries, right? Nicks, aches, all types of stuff to be out here on the field for my team, right? So I wouldn't relate with that guy at all. So I'm like you, Ryan. It'd be hard to accept him in again. He would have to really prove to me that he was like, you got to come back next game, 2 picks, you know what I'm saying? 3 sacks, you got to go crazy. Like, for me to really bring you back into the fold and have that trust.
That's really, for me, that's really something I feel like I would see from an offensive player.
Hey, hold on, man. Get
like
your ass out of here,
skill
dog.
position. Because I feel like defenses are always so tight-knit. Like, we fighting for our brother. Like, that's the thought, is I'm going in there, I'm doing my job so that my brother can eat. Like, we always talk about it in Cleveland, rushing coverage. They work together. You need both in order to succeed. And I just think, it's a shitty situation, because I believe his career is over now.
Yes.
Like, and that's what you don't want to see. You don't want to see somebody throw away their whole career because of a small amount of time frame thinking. And it's just, it's tough. But for me, I could never be able to trust you again as a teammate. And trust is a huge thing. I got to trust that when we're both out there, you got to trust that I'm going to do my job. And I got to trust that you're going to do your job. So, you just left me high and dry like that, because, shit happens. That's football. There's politics all over football. We all know this. There's nothing that's going to make me quit on my brother. We can say screw the coaches and say all that stuff, but I'll never say screw my teammates.
Yeah.
I'll never go out there and leave my teammates high and dry. So for me, that's unacceptable. I couldn't have you back on the team, but the shitty part about it is I don't think he'll ever have a job again.
Well, speaking of jobs, that's going to come up in his first job after ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's going to affect him for a long time. And I really wish he'd handled it differently, or at least put out a statement as to, what was going on, because it's just devastating for the narrative of his career.
I agree. He needs a statement. He needs to make a statement today, get it cleared out, try to move past it, right? Or he's going to have to be living with this for a long time.
Or the fact that it won't be a statement, because it is what it is. I did what I did, and I'm going to stand
on it.
You know what I mean?
Maybe he just don't care.
It's just what it is sometimes.
Well, we're the Harrises. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week for the best sports talk imaginable.